The summer heat in the little town of Valverde wasn't just hot, it was heavy, like a blanket soaked in secrets. For Isadora Leal, returning home wasn't in the plans. Not now, not after everything she had built in the city. But sometimes, life doesn't ask. It just pulls the rug and watches you fall. Are you really doing this, Isa? Quitting your job? Just like that? Her best friend's voice crackled through the phone. I don't have a choice, Luisa. My mom's not well. She needs me. But your promotion. My mother comes first, she said, holding back the lump rising in her throat. 3 days later, Isadora stood on the old porch of her childhood home, suitcase in hand. The wooden steps creaked under her feet, and the scent of jasmine, the same ones her mother planted years ago, still hung in the air. Inside, Odette Leal sat on her favorite armchair, gazing blankly at the wall. My, Isadora whispered. Odette blinked, her eyes slowly focusing. Isadora? Oh, look at you. Did you cut your hair? Isadora smiled softly. 2 years ago, Mai. It wasn't just memory loss. It was something deeper. There were days Odette would be lucid, gentle, witty, full of her usual sarcasm. Other days, she'd lock herself in her room and murmur names Isadora had never heard. Valverde hadn't changed much. The same gossipers sat in front of the bakery. The same kids ran through the square chasing stray dogs. But the whispers had evolved. Did you hear? Isadora came back, left everything to take care of that crazy old woman. Poor girl. She was doing so well in the city. At the center of the whispers stood Tia Romelia, Odette's sister, and the town's unofficial authority on everyone's business. She always was too soft, Romelia hissed, sipping her chamomile tea. That girl throws away a career just to play nursemaid. What a waste! Isadora heard it all, but she didn't care, not at first. One evening, while organizing the attic, Isadora stumbled upon an old velvet box. Inside it, among yellowed photographs and a dried corsage, lay a folded letter addressed to E.L. in a handwriting she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then unfolded it. My dearest, they said I had to disappear, that our love would destroy everything they built. I'm sorry I couldn't fight harder, but I swear I will find a way back to you, even if they bury me alive. The date was 1989. Isadora stared at the letter, heart pounding. Who was this from? And who had wanted to bury whom? She rushed downstairs. Mai, who is this? Odette looked up from her crossword puzzle, her expression carefully blank. Don't dig where there's nothing to find, Isadora. But let the past rest. And she returned to her puzzle. But something had awakened in Isadora. A feeling, a tension, something that told her, this family has secrets, and they don't want me to know them. The next day, while walking through the main square, Isadora ran into Elias, her high school boyfriend. Well, look who's back, he said, with that crooked smile that used to make her stomach flip. Hey, she replied, not sure how to feel. He studied her for a moment. Didn't think you'd really come back. City girl, living the dream. Dreams change, or fall apart, he smirked. She forced a smile and walked past him. Elias Vasconcelos, son of the wealthiest family in Valverde. Charming, entitled, and dangerous in his own lazy way. Her heart used to race for him. Now it beat with caution. A week later, while Odette napped, Isadora returned to the attic. She went through more boxes, old notebooks, postcards, birthday cards. Then she found a photograph. Her mother, much younger, standing beside a man Isadora didn't recognize. Tall, dark-haired, smiling like he had stolen the sun itself. On the back it said, To O, with love, R. She took it downstairs. Who is this man, mine? Odette glanced at it and dropped her glass of water. Where did you find that? In the attic. Put it back. I said, put it back. Odette's voice shook and her eyes glistened. That man is gone. Gone forever. That night, Odette didn't sleep. She walked around the house whispering names, one name over and over, Mateus. 2 days later, a knock echoed at the front door. Isadora opened it to find a stranger standing there. Rough beard, quiet eyes, backpack slung over one shoulder. Hi, I'm Artur. I was told this was the Leal residence. Depends who's asking. I'm new in town. Looking for work. Heard your mom used to take in help from time to time? Isadora raised an eyebrow. She hasn't in years. Arthur smiled awkwardly. Worth asking. She hesitated. Something about him was familiar, but she couldn't place it. There's a tool shed in the back. We could use help with repairs. Appreciate it. As he walked away, Odette appeared behind her. Who's that man? A handyman. Says he's new. Odette squinted at Arthur's back. Her face paled. That can't be. What? Isadora asked, but Odette shook her head. Nothing. Just nothing. Days passed. Arthur fixed the broken fence, trimmed the trees, even managed to get the old sprinkler system running again. You're good at this, Isadora said one afternoon. He shrugged. I've lived in a lot of places, picked up some skills. Why Valverde? Arthur looked at her. Sometimes you're called to a place even if you don't know why. Their eyes lingered a second too long. Isadora turned away. At the local bakery, whispers rose again. Did you see that man at the Leal house? He looks like someone, but I can't put my finger on it. You don't think he's related to the Vasconcelos family? Or worse, to him. Back home, Tia Romelia visited unannounced. That man in your backyard. Who is he? She demanded. A worker. He's helping out. You're being too trusting, Isadora. People here, they don't forget. Forget what? Romelia stiffened. Just be careful. With that, she left, leaving behind a faint smell of judgment and rose perfume. Later that night, Isadora sat beside her mother, combing her hair. My, who's Mateus? Odette tensed. You said his name the other night. Odette looked at her daughter, eyes glassy. He was the boy next door, a long time ago. Did you love him? Odette turned her face away. I was young, foolish. Love isn't enough. Isadora felt a sting. Then what is? Loyalty, silence, survival. The next day, Arthur entered the kitchen, holding something. I found this behind the garden shed. He handed her a rusted metal box. Inside were old envelopes, half-burnt photographs, and a necklace with a broken clasp. On the back of one photograph, to my daughter, forgive me. Isadora's hands trembled. She ran to her mother. Is this from my father? Odette looked at the photo and burst into tears. I tried to protect you, she whispered. I didn't know it would cost us so much. Protect me from what? Isadora begged. But Odette shut down again, retreating into silence. That night, Isadora couldn't sleep. She stood outside, staring at the stars. Arthur joined her, quietly. She knows more than she's saying, Isadora said. Maybe she's scared. Of what? The truth. Isadora turned to him. You speak like you've lived through something like this. Arthur's eyes darkened. Maybe I have. Why did you come to Valverde, really? Arthur hesitated. Because I think I was meant to meet you. Her breath caught. Why? He stepped closer. Because the past never really stays buried, Isa. She blinked. Did you just call me Isa? Arthur froze. Sorry, I heard someone say it. No one calls me that anymore, she whispered. Only my father used to. They locked eyes. A wind picked up. Something stirred. Isadora didn't know what it was, but it felt like the start of a storm. The photo had been flipped over, but its message was branded in Isadora's mind. To my daughter, forgive me. She couldn't unsee it, couldn't unfeel it. For days, she'd tried to talk to her mother again, but Odette drifted in and out of lucidity like a ghost. Some days she was almost herself, sipping tea, humming old lullabies, then suddenly blank, distant, as if her mind had packed its bags and left the room. But the name Isadora had pulled from her, Ricardo Vasconcelos, was real, and she needed to know who he was and what he had meant to her mother. The Vasconcelos mansion still stood high on the hill, like a judgmental crown over Valverde. Isadora had only been there once as a child, at a charity event, where her mother clutched her hand the whole time and barely spoke. Now she walked up to the gate with her heart racing, a strange mix of nerves and fire pushing her forward. The maid who answered narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Can I help you? I need to speak with Beatriz Vasconcelos. It's personal. A pause. Then, with a tight nod, the maid disappeared. Moments later, Beatriz Vasconcelos appeared, tall, poised, and sharper than broken glass. Her hair was pulled back in a bun that hadn't moved in decades, and her pearl necklace seemed more like a collar of control than a piece of jewelry. "Well, if it isn't little Isadora Leal," Beatrice said, voice like velvet dipped in ice. "You knew my mother," Isadora said, refusing to be intimidated. Beatrice's smile was brief, lifeless. Everyone knew Odette. She was memorable. "Who was Ricardo?" Isadora demanded. Beatrice blinked. "My son." Isadora's breath caught. "She said you told her he was dead." Beatrice tilted her head, just slightly. "Because he is." "Where? Is he buried?" Another pause. "There was no body to bury. He disappeared. Years ago." Isadora's heart thundered. "He disappeared, or you made him disappear." Beatrice took a slow step forward. "I see you've inherited your mother's fire. Dangerous trait. I'm not here to play games." Beatrice's smile returned, tight and cruel. "Then I suggest you leave the past where it belongs. If you value your peace and your mother's dignity, you'll stop digging. Some graves weren't meant to be opened." And with that, the iron gate closed in Isadora's face. That night, Isadora couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's pale face, Beatrice's cold smile, and Ricardo's picture in her hands. She went outside, where the air was still and heavy. The stars blinked in the velvet sky. Arthur was sitting on the old swing under the jacaranda tree, a tool belt still slung over his shoulder. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. "No, the truth makes a lot of noise." He nodded, saying nothing. She sat next to him. "You've lived in a lot of towns, haven't you?" He nodded again. "Have you ever seen someone lie so well they start believing it?" Arthur chuckled softly. "I've seen people do worse to protect a secret." She looked at him. "What's your secret, Arthur?" He looked away. "I'm not the one with a past buried in rose bushes." Silence stretched between them. "I went to the Vasconcelos house today," she said quietly. "I think my mother loved their son. I think she had me because of him." Arthur tensed, but said nothing. "Do you think love like that just disappears?" He finally met her eyes. "No, but sometimes it gets erased, piece by piece, until even the people who lived it start to forget it was real." Isadora swallowed hard. "They're hiding something," she said. "All of them. Even my mother." Over the next few days, Isadora began searching deeper. She visited the town library, the local archives, even old neighbors. One woman, Donna Vilma, a retired seamstress, remembered Odette vividly. "She was different after Ricardo vanished," the old woman said, quieter, scared. "I remember one time she came to me to fix a dress, and she had bruises on her arms. Said she fell down the stairs, but..." Isadora's stomach turned. "Was Ricardo abusive?" "No, Menina. It wasn't him. It was the people around him. His family never accepted Odette. She wasn't from their world." She left the house with her heart in knots. Back at home, her mother sat in the living room, humming the same lullaby over and over. Isadora sat beside her. "Mine," she whispered. "Was Ricardo my father?" Odette flinched, her hands tightening on her skirt. Tears filled Isadora's eyes. "Please, I need to know who I am." Odette stared straight ahead. "They said he died, but I never saw the body. Just a letter from Beatrice, and then silence." "Did he ever know about me?" Odette's lips trembled. "He wanted to run away. We had plans, but they found out. They said I was a problem, that I'd ruin the family." She touched her daughter's face. "You were never the problem, Isa. You were the only thing that made sense." The next day, something happened that Isadora wasn't expecting. Danilo. He showed up at her door with that same half-smile that once melted her at 16. "I heard you've been asking questions," he said. "Everyone's heard," she replied, crossing her arms. He looked nervous, out of place. "I wanted to tell you something about the Vasconcelos family." Isadora raised an eyebrow. "Why would you care?" Danilo hesitated. "Because I'm connected to them, more than you know." "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath. "My mother worked for them, as a maid, for years, but there were rumors about my real father." Isadora felt her pulse quicken. "I think Ricardo might have been my father too." The world tilted slightly. "What?" Danilo stepped closer. "It sounds insane, I know, but there were whispers. My mother died before she could confirm it. Beatrice always treated me differently, like I was a stain she couldn't scrub out." Isadora couldn't breathe. "If that's true," she began. Then No, I won't believe it until I have proof. Neither will I, he said. But maybe we can find it together. Later that night, Marina came by unannounced with that no-nonsense look on her face. I have something to show you, she said, pulling out an envelope from her purse. Found this hidden inside a donated book at the church. Looked old. Thought it might mean something. Inside was a small newspaper clipping from 1990. The title read, "Local Heir Vanishes After Scandal." The article was brief, but clear. Ricardo Vasconcelos, son of Beatriz Vasconcelos, was reported missing after a rumored affair with a local girl. Sources claim the family denied the relationship and has since declined to comment. Isadora stared at the clipping like it was a ghost come to life. He disappeared, Marina said. But it doesn't say he died. No obituary, no confirmation. Nothing. Isadora's voice was barely a whisper. What if he's still alive? Days turned into a whirlwind of searching, questioning, investigating. With Danilo's help, they tracked down an old employee of the Vasconcelos estate, Lorenzo, now a groundskeeper at a retirement home. He remembered everything. I was there the night he left, Lorenzo said, eyes shadowed. He wanted to elope with your mother. I heard them arguing in the garden. Then his car vanished. Beatrice said he left for good. But I found his watch buried under the fountain 3 days later. Why didn't you say anything? Because I was scared. People who asked too much around that family didn't last long. Where do you think he went? Isadora asked. Lorenzo hesitated. There was talk that Beatrice sent him away, somewhere far, somewhere quiet. The next twist came from where Isadora least expected it. Artur. That evening, she found him sitting in the garden, holding something wrapped in cloth. I wasn't sure if I should give you this, he said. He unwrapped it. Inside was a notebook, leather-bound, old, worn with time. I found it in the attic of the old caretaker's house. My mother used to clean there. I think it belonged to Ricardo. Isadora opened it, hands shaking. Inside were pages of poetry, sketches, and letters, dozens of them, each one addressed to Odette. One letter read, "They think they've beaten me, love, but I won't stop. I'll find you again. They'll never keep me away forever, not even my own blood." At the bottom, "For our child, for you, forever." Isadora looked up, eyes wet. He loved her. Yes, Artur said softly. And maybe he never left. She turned to him slowly. What do you mean? Artur's face shifted. Hesitation, fear, something unspoken flickering in his eyes. Artur, she said, stepping closer. You know something. He looked away. I think I might be connected to him too. Silence fell like thunder. Are you saying you're his son? I don't know, he whispered. My mother never told me who my father was. She worked near the Vasconcelos estate, in secret. When she died, I found a letter. It said my father's name was R. Vasconcelos. Isadora's head spun. You and I don't think we're siblings, Artur said quickly. But I do think we were meant to find each other. Because all of this, it's not just about the past. It's about setting it free. That night, Isadora sat by her mother's side again. She read the letter aloud. And for the first time, Odette cried. Where did they send him? Isadora asked. I know you know. Odette shook her head. I only know he wrote to me one last time. He said he was in a place called Santa Aurora, that he had changed his name. Do you still have that letter? Odette's hand trembled as she pointed to an old sewing box. Inside, folded neatly beneath buttons and thread, was a letter that began, My name is no longer Ricardo, but I am still yours. And at the bottom, an address. Isadora turned to Artur the next morning, holding the letter in both hands. I'm going to Santa Aurora, she said. He smiled. Then I'm going with you. Danilo stepped onto the porch behind them, arms crossed. So am I. She looked at them both, the boy she once loved, and the man who had become her anchor. Somewhere, at the end of the road, was a truth that could change everything. But she wasn't afraid anymore, because sometimes the silence had to be broken. The road to Santa Aurora twisted through green hills and old villages, each curve feeling like a heartbeat, each signpost whispering, You're getting closer. Isadora sat in the passenger seat of Danilo's old truck, clutching the letter in her lap like it might disappear if she let go. Arthur sat in the back, quiet, focused, almost tense. The energy between the three was thick. History, tension, and a question none of them dared say out loud. What if he's still alive? Santa Aurora was a sleepy town, smaller than Valverde, with narrow cobblestone streets and sleepy-eyed locals who watched strangers with suspicion. At the edge of town stood an old house with faded blue walls and white shutters, the address from the letter. They stood before it in silence. "This is it," Isadora whispered. Arthur stepped forward and rang the bell. Nothing. He rang again. Still nothing. Then, from behind the curtain, someone peeked. A moment later, the door creaked open. A man stood there, mid-60s, sun-worn skin, silver in his thick hair. His eyes, green, sharp, and heavy with stories, locked with Isadora's. "Can I help you?" he asked cautiously. Isadora's voice shook. "We're looking for a man named Ricardo Vasconcelos." The man blinked, expression unreadable. "You've got the wrong house." "No," she said, stepping closer. "You wrote this letter to my mother, Odette Leal." He went still. Danilo watched, breath held. Arthur's hands clenched behind his back. Finally, the man sighed. "Come in." The living room smelled of lemon polish and old books. On a nearby shelf, framed photos showed landscapes, flowers, and one black and white photo of a young couple laughing. Isadora recognized her mother. The man sat down slowly, resting his hands on his knees. "My name is Raul Mendez now, but yes, I was Ricardo Vasconcelos." "Why did you leave?" Isadora asked, barely holding back tears. "I didn't leave," he said, voice low. "I was sent away." He told them everything. How Beatrice had caught wind of Odette's pregnancy, how she threatened to cut him off, ruin Odette's life, call in favors from judges and politicians to have her declared unfit. "I was young, stupid. I told my mother I wouldn't give in. I packed my bags to run away with Odette. But that night, they drugged me." Isadora gasped. "They told the town I vanished. They sent me here, under a different name. I was told Odette wanted nothing more to do with me." "She thought you were dead," Isadora whispered. "They made sure she would." There was silence. "I tried to find her, years later, but by then, she had disappeared, moved, changed her number. I thought maybe she didn't want me anymore." Isadora shook her head. "She loved you until the end. She still does." He closed his eyes. "And you?" "I'm her daughter." Raul Ricardo froze. Tears filled his eyes. "I have a daughter." He stood, reached for her hands, but stopped just short. "I can't change the past," he whispered. "But if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your future." Isadora nodded, barely able to speak. Behind them, Arthur turned away, his jaw clenched tight. Back at the inn that night, the three sat in silence. Danilo finally broke it. "So, he's your father?" "Yes, and I might be his son too," Danilo added, almost bitterly. Isadora looked at him. "We don't know that yet." "I do," Arthur said quietly. They both turned to him. "I don't think either of you are his only child." "What?" Isadora asked. Arthur took a deep breath. "My mother was a maid at the Vasconcelos estate. She kept a journal. After Ricardo disappeared, she wrote that Beatrice had arranged something, that Ricardo had fathered another child, and that the child was taken away from the mother and hidden." Danilo stood. "You're saying there's a third one of us?" Arthur nodded. "A brother, maybe a sister, hidden, possibly, right in front of us." When they returned to Valverde, they were met with chaos. The Leal house had been broken into, drawers tossed, photos torn, Odette shaken. Marina was there, comforting her. "They didn't take anything," she said, "but they were looking for something." Isadora's blood ran cold. Someone doesn't want this story out. That night, she pieced everything together. The Vasconcelos family had controlled everything. Power, press, the law. Beatrice had lied, manipulated, banished her own son, broken Odette, and still it wasn't enough. Someone was watching, and someone wanted to silence them all. 2 days later, an anonymous envelope arrived at the Leal home. Inside was a photograph of a young woman, blonde, smiling, wearing a locket identical to the one Ricardo had given Odette in the 80s. On the back, in scratchy handwriting, "Ask Beatrice who Juliana really is." The next morning, Isadora stormed up to the Vasconcelos mansion. This time, she didn't wait at the gate. The butler tried to stop her, but she shoved past, straight into the drawing room, where Beatriz Vasconcelos sat drinking tea, perfectly composed. "You've kept too many secrets," Isadora said, voice shaking. "But this one ends now." She dropped the photo on the table. Beatrice paled. "Who is she?" Isadora demanded. Beatrice stared at the picture, lips pressed into a line. "She's no one." "No," Isadora said. "She's your granddaughter, isn't she?" Beatrice said nothing. Danilo and Artur entered behind her. Beatrice's mask cracked. "Yes," she said finally. "She's Ricardo's daughter, with another maid, after Odette. The girl was a scandal. I sent her away." "Where is she now?" Artur asked. Beatrice's eyes flicked to him. "With a new family, raised to forget." Danilo stepped forward. "What was her name?" Beatrice closed her eyes. Juliana Vasconcelos." Artur pulled something from his pocket. A bracelet. "I found this in my mother's chest before she died. She said it belonged to her niece. I thought it was nothing." Isadora looked at him, breath catching. "She's your sister." Artur's voice broke. "And she's out there." As the episode ended, Marina stood outside the Leal home, holding the same photo. Her fingers trembled. She pulled out her phone and called a number saved under blocked. "She knows," she said. "They all know now." A voice on the other end answered. "Then it's time to finish what we started." Breakfast sat untouched on the table, the steam from the coffee curling up into the morning light like smoke from a fire that had long since burned down. Isadora stared at the photo of Juliana, the half-sister she never knew existed. Her mother, Odette, sat beside her, thinner than before, hands trembling as she held onto her teacup like it was the only thing anchoring her to this world. "You're really going after her?" Odette asked, her voice fragile but clear. "I have to," Isadora said gently. "She has a right to know the truth, and so do I." Odette sighed, looking older than ever. "There are truths that free us, Isa, and others that haunt." Isadora took her mother's hand. "I'm not afraid anymore." Together with Artur and Danilo, Isadora followed the only real lead they had, Juliana's photo, found in the anonymous envelope with the cryptic message, "Ask Beatrice who Juliana really is." But it wasn't Beatrice who gave them the final clue. It was Marina. She showed up unannounced, carrying a folder under her arm and that familiar, knowing look on her face. "I figured you'd be close to finding her by now," she said, placing the folder on the table. "What's this?" Isadora asked. "A contact file. I volunteer at a women's foundation in São Pedro. A girl came through a few years ago. No family, no history, but she wore a necklace, just like yours." Isadora's heart skipped a beat. Artur leaned forward. "Juliana?" Marina nodded. "She goes by another name now, but yes, it's her." Danilo frowned. "How did you know to look for her there?" Marina hesitated. "Because I helped place her there, years ago." Silence dropped like a bomb. "What?" Isadora whispered. "I didn't know who she was at the time," Marina said quickly. "She was just another lost girl, scared, quiet. She didn't remember much. But when I saw her necklace, I kept a copy of her intake form. I thought, one day, maybe I'd understand." Isadora stared at her best friend. "You've had this all this time?" Marina's voice cracked. "I didn't know she was your sister. I swear. But when that photo showed up, I connected the dots." Isadora didn't respond. Her eyes were already on the address. 2 days later, they found Juliana. She was working at a flower shop in São Pedro, hair tied back, smile soft and distant, as if she lived in a world just slightly out of reach. Isadora stood at the entrance, watching her for a long moment. Then she walked inside. Juliana looked up. "Can I help you?" Isadora tried to find her voice. I think we might be sisters." Juliana froze. Behind her, Artur and Danilo waited by the car. "I don't have a sister," Juliana said cautiously. Isadora held out the necklace. Juliana's eyes widened. "I have one just like that," she whispered. "I know. It was our father's." Juliana shook her head. "I don't know my father. I don't know anything." "I do," Isadora said. "I've been looking for you." They sat in a nearby cafe. Juliana's hands shaking as Isadora told her everything. About Odette, about Ricardo, about Beatriz, about the lies, the silence, the erasure. I was given up, Juliana whispered. I always thought it was because I wasn't wanted. You were hidden, Isadora said. Not unwanted. Never. Tears slid silently down Juliana's cheeks. Artur approached slowly, unsure. Isadora looked at her and said gently, "And this is Artur. He's one of us too." Juliana looked at him, really looked, and something softened in her expression. "I remember you," she said, voice barely above a breath. "Your mother used to come visit me. She brought cookies with orange zest." Artur blinked. "You were in my house?" "She called me Molequinha and said I was brave." He sat beside her. "She always talked about you." They all sat there, breathing the same air. For the first time, like a family beginning to form out of fragments. But peace didn't last long. That night, back at the inn, Artur received a message from an unknown number. "She's not safe. If you don't leave this alone, you'll regret it." He showed it to Isadora and Danilo. "This is getting serious," Danilo said. "They're scared," Isadora replied, "because we're getting close." The next morning, Beatriz Vasconcelos made her move. She arrived at the Leal house, uninvited and unannounced, wearing a black dress like she was going to a funeral. "I warned you," she said coldly, sitting across from Odette. Odette stared at her, older but stronger now. "You destroyed my life, but you won't touch my daughter." Beatrice's lips curled. "You always were sentimental." Odette stood. "Get out of my house." Beatrice didn't move. "If they go public with this, with what happened to Ricardo, the whole family will burn, and I'll make sure you burn with us." "You already burned me once," Odette said. "But I'm still here." Isadora entered at that moment. "You're done threatening people," she said. "We found Juliana." Beatrice's mask cracked for a moment. "She deserves to know," Isadora continued. "And so does the world." "You think people will believe you?" Beatrice hissed. "A housemaid's daughter and a few orphans against the Vasconcelos legacy?" Isadora smiled, calm and sure. "We're not orphans anymore." Beatrice stood. "Then be prepared to suffer the consequences." And suffer they did. Later that evening, Juliana disappeared. She was gone from her apartment. No sign of a struggle. No note. Isadora's heart plummeted. "We need to find her," she said, panicked. They checked hospitals, bus stations, shelters. Nothing. Until Artur received another message. "She's safe. But if you want to see her again, stop digging. Or next time, it won't be so clean." Danilo punched the wall. "They took her. They're desperate," Isadora whispered. "Which means we're winning. The breaking." Point came from the last place Isadora expected, Marina. That night, Isadora found her waiting at the Leal house, crying. "I have to confess something," she said, "and you're going to hate me." "Marina, what is it?" "I was the one who sent the photo. The first one, of Juliana." Isadora blinked. "What?" "I was working with Beatrice." Silence. "I didn't know what I was getting into. She offered me money to keep an eye on you, to keep you away from the truth." Isadora stared at her, stunned. "I was." "Desperate," Marina sobbed. "My mother's medical bills were drowning me. I didn't want to hurt you. I never thought it would go this far." "You let them take Juliana," Isadora said, voice low, broken. "I didn't know they would," Marina whispered. Artur stepped forward. "Where would they take her?" Marina swallowed. "There's an old property, outside town, a vineyard. Beatrice's father used to own it. They kept secrets there." Isadora nodded. "Then that's where we go." That night, under a heavy sky, the trio drove to the abandoned Vasconcelos vineyard. The house at the end of the dirt road was dark, quiet, but not empty. Inside, they found Juliana, locked in a back room, shaken but unharmed. "Are you okay?" Isadora asked, holding her tightly. Juliana nodded. "They just wanted to scare me." "They failed," Artur said. As they left, headlights flashed in the distance. Beatrice's car. She stepped out, slow and menacing. "You had your warning." Isadora walked toward her. "And you've had your power for too long. You'll regret this." "No," Isadora said. "You will." She held up a recorder. "Everything you said at my house, it's all here." Beatrice paled. "You can keep hiding behind fear," Isadora said. But we're done being quiet. Beatriz said nothing, just climbed into her car and vanished into the night. Back in Valverde, the story spread like wildfire. The Vasconcelos dynasty was exposed, their silence, their threats, their manipulation, torn apart by the truth. Odette gave an interview. So did Ricardo. And finally, Juliana stood beside her siblings, hand in hand, as they shared their story with the world. The town looked at them differently now, not as broken branches of a powerful tree, but as survivors who chose truth over fear. As for Beatrice, she vanished. Some say she moved to another country. Others say she went mad from the collapse of everything she'd spent her life building. One evening, back at the Blue House, the family gathered. Ricardo stood beside Odette. On the porch, Artur sat beside Juliana, sketching flowers, and Danilo approached Isadora, hands in his pockets. I guess this is the part where I ask what comes next. Isadora looked at him. I don't know. You still love me? She hesitated, then smiled softly. Maybe. But I think I need to learn who I am first, the real me, without secrets. Danilo nodded. I can live with that. As he turned to walk away, Artur appeared beside her. I'm not going anywhere, he said gently. She smiled. For once, the silence in her chest was gone. A warm breeze passed through the open windows of the Blue House, once abandoned, now alive again with laughter, music, and memory. Isadora, Artur, Juliana, and Ricardo had created something that felt almost impossible, a family. Every evening they gathered around the table, not just to eat, but to fill the space with what had once been missing, connection. Odette, though weaker now, was full of light. Her smile had returned. Her daughter was safe. Her love was alive, and silence no longer ruled the Leal name. But just when the storm seemed over, another wave approached. It started with a letter. An envelope arrived by mail. No return address, no stamp. Just Isadora's name in handwriting that looked oddly familiar. She opened it slowly. Inside, a single sheet of paper, yellowed with time. It read, "There's one last thing you should know. You were never alone. The child they said was lost, was never lost. I saved him. And now, he's looking. For you." At the bottom, a single initial, R. She sat back, dizzy. What is it? Artur asked, walking in. She handed him the letter. His face darkened as he read. Another child? Isadora stood. I thought we knew everything. I thought Juliana was the missing piece. She still might be, Artur said. But what if she wasn't the only one taken? Isadora's pulse raced. What if I have a twin? Later that day, Ricardo called them all into the living room. There's something I've never told anyone, he began. Not even Odette. They gathered around, tense. When Beatrice had me taken away, Odette was already pregnant. But before I was sent to Santa Aurora, I learned something from one of the nurses at the estate clinic. He took a deep breath. She was having twins. A beat of stunned silence. I thought she lost one during birth. That's what Beatrice told me. But she lied. Again. I think she kept the second baby for herself or gave him away. Juliana's eyes filled with tears. Then who is he? Where is he now? Ricardo shook his head. I don't know, but someone does. That letter proves it. Isadora clenched her fists. Then we find him. The trail led them to Tia Romelia. They hadn't seen her since the family's fall, but she hadn't left town, still sipping her bitter tea, still judging from behind her lace curtains. When Isadora arrived at her door, Romelia blinked like she'd seen a ghost. I knew you'd come one day, she said, stepping aside. You knew? Isadora asked. Romelia poured herself tea. I was there the night Odette gave birth. It was storming. There were 2 cries, not one. Where did he go? Artur demanded. Romelia took a long sip. Beatrice took him, said it was better that way, that Odette didn't need to know. She paid the doctor off, told everyone there was only one child. Where is he now? Isadora asked. She gave him to a couple who owed the Vasconcelos family a debt. Good people, poor. They lived in the mountains near Pedra Branca. Isadora exchanged a glance with Artur. Then that's where we go. Pedra Branca was quiet and cold, nestled between hills like a forgotten jewel. They went door to door, photo in hand, asking locals if they'd seen the boy from the letter. It was an old woman at a fruit stand who finally spoke up. I knew a boy like that. His name was Emmanuel. Moved away a year ago. Said he was looking for someone. Said he had questions about where he came from. Where did he go? Isadora asked. Back to, Valverde, I think. Said something about finding a woman named Odette Leal. Back in Valverde, everything happened fast. They checked every hotel, every boarding house. And then, in the town square, under the jacaranda tree, he stood, tall, lean, quiet eyes like Isadora's. When he turned, it was like looking in a mirror blurred by time. Emmanuel? She asked. He stared at her, heart in his throat. I knew you'd find me, he said. They sat at the same cafe where Isadora once met Juliana. I always felt out of place, Emmanuel said. My parents were kind, but I knew I wasn't theirs. I started digging, found the name Vasconcelos in some old papers, found the name Odette. That led me to you. Arthur sat silently beside him. You're our brother. Emmanuel smiled, tears in his eyes. It's strange. I've never felt like I belonged anywhere. But here, now, maybe I do. Isadora held his hand. You always did. You just didn't know it yet. Later that night, the family gathered at the Blue House one final time. Odette was resting in bed, too tired to join, but smiling from her room. Ricardo looked at his children, 4 souls scattered by silence, now whole. This was never supposed to happen, he said, but maybe it was always meant to. They lit candles on the porch, one for each truth, one for each name forgotten, one for every piece of themselves they had reclaimed. Juliana held Emmanuel's hand. Isadora leaned against Arthur's shoulder. Danilo watched from the fence, smiling. He hadn't won, her back. But maybe that wasn't the point anymore. Maybe love wasn't about possession. Maybe it was about presence. Weeks later, Isadora stood in front of a crowd at the town's cultural center. In her hands, the first copy of her book, When Silence Spoke Louder, by Isadora Leal. The audience was packed. Faces that once whispered now listened with wide eyes and open hearts. She stepped to the microphone. This is not just my story, she said. It's my mother's, my father's, my siblings. And maybe yours too. It's about what happens when we let silence make our choices, when we bury the truth out of fear. But most of all, it's about what happens when we finally find the courage to speak. Applause rose, loud, raw, healing. And in the back of the room, Odette wiped a tear from her cheek, proud. Later that night, Isadora sat alone under the jacaranda tree. Arthur joined her. Did you ever think it would end like this? He asked. She shook her head. No, I didn't even think we'd survive it. He leaned closer. So, now what? She smiled. Now, we live, with no more lies, no more fear. And love? He asked. She looked at him, heart steady, and answered simply. Only the kind that doesn't hide. He kissed her forehead. And under the stars, in the town where everything began, Isadora finally felt free.